Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming. Now you just had food, so we're good. When I get hungry, I get hangry. I don't know about you, so this is the best timing to have the talk. And I'm going to be talking to you about psychology. So you might be thinking should I just think about all my dramas and cry here? No, you will see that I'll be talking about something that you all care about. Because I want to ask you the most important question here, and you still have time to go and not watch the talk, right? So please raise your hand if you are not human. No, okay. There you go. Feel free to go out, because this talk is for humans and for people who interact with other humans as well, right? Because understanding human behavior is one thing that's quite important, because the team people are humans, your customers are humans, so we interact with humans all the time. That's why psychology is about understanding humans. And before we get started, I want you to watch this tiny video here.
My name is Derren Brown, and the question we're considering is simple. Can we be manipulated through social pressure to commit murder?
70 people coming in here. They can't see this. Take them by the knees.
70 actors will be playing out a meticulously planned and rehearsed scenario to manipulate this man, who has no idea he's being filmed.
Come on, guys, what are we gonna do?
He's a millionaire. He's going to make sure you go to jail.
This show is about how readily we hand over authorship of our lives every day.
Just give him one big push.
Can social compliance be used to make someone push a living, breathing human being to their death? Welcome to The Push.
Has anyone watched that? Now everyone's going and looking for The Push to watch it and see how we can manipulate people. So what do you think? Are you manipulated? Have you been manipulated in the last week or so? I have. I've been manipulated all the time. And that's why I decided to understand what is behind all the manipulation. Because back in the days, more than 10 years ago, I thought if I go to Google and I search for where to eat in Amsterdam, which is actually something I did when I arrived here, right? And then I was like, how many results do we have? 147 million results come. And then 9 in 10 people click on a result from the first page. So who made that call? Who made that decision? Did I make it, or did Google make it for me? Was I influenced or manipulated to click on that result? Yes, I was. So I started realizing that I was not in control of my decisions anymore. And then I started thinking about, okay, so how many decisions we make? Every day, each and every one of you make 35,000 decisions. Do you remember the ones you made yesterday? I don't even remember 35. Can you imagine 35,000? The thing is, we make those decisions unconsciously. We make them because we are influenced and sometimes manipulated by the things around us. And then I thought, how many of those decisions are actually digital decisions? What is a digital decision? A digital decision is a decision that you make using technology, or that you fully delegate so that technology can make that decision for you. So it's one or the other. And then I thought, one day maybe we can calculate how many of those 35,000 are digital decisions. Because it's like a GPS device. When you want to go from point A to point B, you open your Google Maps, Waze, or whatever GPS you have, and then you say, take me to this place. And then if you don't know anything about the area, you will follow the GPS. So you are following technology. You're following what technology is telling you to do. But those guys, they followed technology. They ended up inside the ocean, and when the police came to save them, they said, I was just following what the GPS was telling me to do. And then just by following that without questioning, without critical thinking, will probably take you to that place. And then that's why I like to raise awareness of the fact that we are making digital decisions all the time. And right now, this is getting to a new world, right? This is getting to the metaverse. It's getting to a point where we will be buying things online inside virtual reality environments without knowing. That's an Alibaba shopping inside a VR space where you can walk into a store, look at an item, and then buy it just by looking at it. So we will be making purchase decisions based on technology. However we do that, we need to be conscious of those decisions we are making, right? And I quite like augmented reality as well, and I think we do have a space for that to help us make better decisions. Like a lot of people don't buy things online because they want to try it first, right? So I guess augmented reality is something that will help us make purchase decisions in a more conscious way as well, but you never know what's going to come after that. This is another area that I guess will be fully transformed as well with the metaverse and with VR and 5G and 6G and 24G that might be coming in a few years, which is the real estate industry. I recently renovated my apartment, and then I wish I had something like that to look around how it was going to be before I actually renovated it, but I didn't. And if you want to know, like I've been playing with these things for a few years. That video I recorded in 2018 when I was trying the VR experience, and it was literally taking me like to an upside down state of mind, and then it was amazing. Like that was completely real. You can't tell what's the difference between reality and what is not real anymore. So I want you to participate now. So after lunch, I don't know about here if you have a siesta after lunch, but if you might be a bit sleepy, so I want you to think now. And I want you to think fast. I want you to say the first thing that comes to your mind when I ask that question. It has to be the first one, right? First thing that comes. Don't think too much. Think fast. So you have a bat and a ball. And the bat and the ball together, they cost $1.10. The bat is $1 more expensive than the ball. How much is the ball? Yeah, you guys are good. Have you seen this before? If you said 5 cents, you've seen it. So there you go. I'm sure you didn't make that calculation in your mind right now. Otherwise, please, whoever said 5 cents without having seen this before, come talk to me afterwards, because like you must have a different processor in your mind, or you're just using cloud computing to calculate all that and make the math right. But if you are a human, and if you haven't seen that before, it's very unlikely that you would say 5 cents. You'd probably say 10 cents, which is what I usually get when I ask that question, and not me, but also the research behind it. And then we know it's not 10 cents when we do the math, because otherwise the sum would be 120, and the right question is 5 cents. The bat is 105, and then it adds up to 110. So if you have seen that before, then you're probably an artificial intelligence that has been trained, right, in the training moment of the artificial intelligence, and then you will have been trained, and then you know that it's 5 cents. That's why you've responded as 5 cents. And that comes from a theory called thinking fast and slow, from not me, but from a Nobel Prize winner, Daniel Kahneman. And when I started reading about human behavior, this is one of the first books that I came across that talks about the way that we make fast decisions. And the thing is, when we make a fast decision, then we could be wrong most of the time, because the fast brain takes shortcuts. And those shortcuts, they can make mistakes. Those mistakes are like bugs in our mind. So think about it. You were born, so you were put in production. We've been deployed to production when we were born. And the code that comes in our mind has bugs. And it's very hard to fix them because we don't have access to the code. And that code has been written like a million years ago, because we've been wired and we've been programmed to deal with situations very different from the situations that we deal right now. We've been wired and programmed to deal with like a situation of, oh, there's a lion and I have to run. And then if I don't run, I might be eaten by that lion. So that's the developer who wrote our code. That was the problems that they had in mind. And then we think fast because thinking fast helps us survive. And I've lived in Australia for a while. So when I say Australia, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Kangaroos and spiders. There you go, pretty much. That's it. The whole country is kangaroos and spiders. It's everything that happens there, it's that. It's kangaroos, like you walk around with a kangaroo and you ride kangaroos. And so you see how brain works. We have a full room of people, and then we talk about one concept, which is a country, and then it's very common that the first thing that comes to people's minds is the same. Kangaroos, spiders, someone said crocodiles the other day. Why is that? Because we've been wired to take shortcuts, right? And that is a stereotype, and we know that stereotyping is not always right, But it helps us because if you catch on fire and you get burned, and then you go, if I touch that, I get burned, so I won't touch it anymore. And then you learn that, and then you don't touch fire anymore because you know it's hot and it burns you. So it helps us, stereotyping and taking shortcuts and learning things help us. The thing is, it's not always that we are in a repeatable situation, that the situation is exactly the same. And it's very hard to tell the difference. That's why we take those shortcuts, and then we make those quick and fast decisions. Yeah, so there are some kangaroos, and there are koalas, and a lot of stuff in Australia, but there's more as well. And I'm originally Brazilian. I was born in Brazil, moved to Australia, and then when I got there, people had stereotypes about Brazil as well. And then people were like, oh, you're Brazilian, so you play football or soccer. And I was like, no, I don't. So people invited me over, but you're Brazilian, you have to play. And I sucked at it, I'm really bad. And then they thought Rio was the capital. And I thought Sydney was the capital of Australia when I went there. So we all have our biases, we all have our stereotypes. And then we just have to be conscious of them. So now you're conscious about the fact that every time you take a shortcut to something, that something might not be true. And then once you believe in it, it becomes your reality, and then you start fighting for it, even though you don't even know if it's true or not. Who here knows Pelé? But which Pelé? What if it's my cousin Pelé? Right? So first thing I say Pelé, you think about the soccer player. Right? Soccer player Pelé? Yeah, it's this one I was talking about. I don't actually have a cousin called Pelé. No one names people Pelé. In Brazil, actually, I've never met a Pelé before. And same thing happened to me when I was in Australia. When I said my name was Fabio, people looked at me and they were like, what, Fabio? So does here in Netherlands, is Fabio a well-known name? Do you know what comes to your mind when you say Fabio? There you go, one guy knows. I didn't, so I arrived there, yeah, my name's Fabio, what's wrong with it? People were laughing at me. And then I was Googling, right? Google, Fabio, why should they be laughing at me? And then this guy comes up. And then you understand, like, why you Googling Fabio? And that's, oh, my name's Fabio, boom, fast brain. They think about that guy. And then they make a decision. The decision is like walking away because you're not him. And then I tried, and this was as far as I could get, like this one here. This was actually it wasn't a GOTO conference. It was the Chicago one that we did online. I really tried. I put on a wig, but then, yeah, it was a bit close. So to help you wake up as well after lunch, I want you to stand up, please. And then we're gonna play a little game called 3 in 1. You're gonna do 3 things in 1 minute, right? It's gonna be very quick, so it's a minute. I was in Atlanta in 2019 during the Martin Luther King Day. And then we had to run some sort of icebreaker. And I came up with that icebreaker that I called I Have a Dream. The I Have a Dream icebreaker, it's pretty much you talking to someone next to you to talk about your dream. And that was my dream. I have a dream that technologists look at ethics and morals as the basis for everything that's done. So what you're going to do right now in 1 minute is you're going to find someone that you don't know. You're going to say, hi, my name is Fabio, if you're Fabio or someone else. And then you're going to ask them, what is your dream? So it's not just about your dream, it's about the other person's dream as well. So please do that in 1 minute. So what is your dream? Yeah, one dream. What's your name?
Cottage. Hi, I'm Tessa.
Tessa.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I want a cottage.
Goats and a cottage. That's an amazing, perfect life. right. All right, all right, all right. Silence. All right, how do I bring the room back? Up. All right, we're done. Who did that? That was good. Good, thank you. I've never learned how to do the thing with the fingers. You can teach me afterwards. I'm gonna come and go. Yeah, never managed to do that. All right, so now you know the other person's dream. And I hope you focused on that dream as well, not only yours, because sometimes we focus too much on ourselves. And then you might be going like, okay, Fabio, what's the whole thing about technology and psychology and that you want to talk to us about? And let me give you a bit of a background here, which is psychology is this big thing that involves a lot of sub-psychology theories. Like psychotherapy is one thing inside psychology, right? But it's not just about that. We think about Freud and like, oh, I want to do psychotherapy and I want to do analysis and think about my problems. But inside psychology, there is something called cognitive psychology. And cognitive psychology has been used by another area called behavioral economics. And behavioral economics is the study of people's decisions, right? So we make 35,000 decisions. I don't want for people to manipulate me. I want to be in control of my decisions. Therefore, studying behavioral economics, which is the thing that we're going to be talking most about here, is a thing that helps you understand decision-making and also how to hack the decision-making, how to hack people's brains to influence them, and so that you also get protected and you don't get influenced to do the things that you don't want to. So those are the three main behavioral economics books that I've ever read, and it's usually what people mention when they're talking about behavioral economics. It's the Thinking Fast and Slow, Predictably Irrational, and Nudge. Those are the three ones. Has anyone read any of those three here? Cool, that's good. So we have some behavioral economists in the room as well. So Dan Ariely wrote the book Predictably Irrational, and then again, when I read it, I was like, I am not irrational. I grew up and I studied that humans are rational beings. We make rational decisions. And then I realized that we don't. We make irrational decisions. We make decisions based on emotions and based on all the biases and the bugs that we have in our brain. So unless you are like Sophia, who doesn't understand irrationality and doesn't behave in an irrational way, this is a date between Sophia and Will Smith.
Hello, Will Smith.
It's nice to meet you, Sophia. Let me tell you a joke.
This is an irrational human behavior to want to tell jokes.
What is a robot's favorite kind of music?
What?
Heavy metal.
I'm actually made mostly of silicone, plastics, and carbon fiber. Also, I prefer electronic music.
All right, so unless you are Sophia, you have irrational behavior inside of you. You have biases because we're all humans, unless that guy who should have walked out because he said he wasn't human, but now you're going to be understanding humans. And yeah, so thanks for staying here. And also, not only we have bugs about decision making, we also have bugs and problems when we see things, right? And optical illusions is one thing that's very well known by everyone. So the A square and the B square are the same shade of gray. They are the exact same color. When I show that, people question me. They were like, are you crazy? Because it's not. So, and you know, on my masterclass a couple of days ago, I said that I had done like a copy and paste, and someone said, please do it again. So I've done it, and I've actually recorded it. So let's really see if we are bugged right now, if we are making those decisions of seeing A and B as differently. So I was like, okay, I'm going to record this. I want to take a screenshot of this square here, and then copy and paste. And then you're going to think that I faked that because I didn't copy and paste. And then we really connected it, and A and B are exactly the same shade of gray. And then I was like, oh my God, I am bugged. I have so many bugs in my mind that I didn't even know about. So you see, it is definitely the same. So when you first saw it, you were probably like, no, it's not. Like, this is not the same, and it's different. But why does that happen? It happens because around A there is light, and around B there is shade. So what is around what we are seeing actually changes the way we see things. And what is around the things that we are making decisions about also affects the way that we make those decisions. This is one of the most famous experiments in behavior economics, where they've shown to people 3 types of subscriptions to the magazine The Economist. If you are to get it just the online version, it's $59. The print version is $125, and both is $125. So what happens? Majority of the people get the $125 for both because they think, why am I getting one print version if I can get both for the same price? And then they go, okay, nobody chose the one in the middle, because why would you pay the same to have less? And the majority got both. And then they remove that option in the middle, and they show just the 2 options. And then to people that they show just the 2 options, the majority of them buy the online version. So that option in the middle that no one chooses, it has a name. It's called Decoy. It is a decoy option that you add to a formula on a decision-making scenario to nudge people into the direction of making one decision. There is actually a formula. So if you have options A and B, and you want someone to choose B, then you add an option called minus B in the equation. So by adding minus B, you are making B look better. Right? On the book, Dan Ariely actually talks about another experiment that he did with his friends, that they were going out to nightclubs and they wanted to find people and meet people before the Tinder days. And then they were like, so what you should do is you should take someone who is slightly uglier than you, but who's not so different, because when they look at it, then they go like, okay, slightly uglier, a bit better, so this one, yeah. And that's the decoy effect applied to dating, pretty much. There is another number that's shocking. It's a number that in Denmark it's 4%, and in Austria it's 99. And usually when I ask that, I ask like, what, do you want to take a guess of what that is? Someone went like, it's the number of Austrians. It was a very clever answer, very good. And then that is the number of organ donors. And why is it that it shows that only 4% are organ donors in Denmark? Because of a tiny little word that we as technologists, we use a lot, the default. If you ever worked with technology, you will have set the default of something at any point in time. So defaulting is very powerful, because the default in Denmark is that you are an organ donor, you have to do an opt-out, you have to ask not to be. And whereas, sorry, it's the other way around. In Austria you are, and you have to ask not to be, and only 1% do that. They go like, I don't want to be, it's an opt-out. Whereas on the other one, you have to ask to be, right? So 96% of people can't be bothered. So do you really think that is intentional? It's not. It's just because we are lazy. And we just go with the flow. We just do what's already been determined by us. And on the digital world, when we are designing interfaces, can you imagine if there was a checkbox that said, I do not want to receive emails? That actually happened to me. I was filling out a form, and then think about what happens on the do nothing situation here. If you do nothing, you will receive. Of course, like LGPD and GPDR and GDPR and all these rules around data protection came up, and then we need something called explicit consent right now for a few things, especially when it's related to your personal information. But we are far from regulating everything that we do in the digital world. We are far from regulating the defaults of everything. So I'm really sure if you are building something, there are defaults when you're building that something. And the defaults are not just the ones we can see. Sometimes there are defaults behind the scenes that we, as users, never see them, and only people who are building that system behind the scenes determines it. So my advice is think a lot about your defaults, because people will not change it. Or there is a tendency for people not to change the default and just keep using the defaults as they are. I was getting an Uber a couple of years ago, and the functionality of Uber Pool had just come out, and then it came as a default, right? So I opened the Pool app, the Uber app, selected where I wanted to go, and the pool came pre-selected. And I didn't even know what it was, so I went to, and I was like, what is this pool thing? Because it's pre-selected. So it came as a default. And then I started to talk to people about it. And this Uber driver came to me and he was like, yeah, man, no one knows what this thing is. I had this woman the other day, she asked for the pool, and then she arrived and there was another person in the back seat, and she was like fighting with me, going like, what? Do you want to take us both? I ordered, and he was like, you ordered the pool. And she was like, I ordered what? She didn't know, so she made the decision because it probably came as a default for her. And then we are being manipulated and influenced by those defaults all the time. If you're watching a TV show on Netflix, it shows the next episode by default with the functionality of autoplay. So if you want to get people to watch more, which is what Netflix actually claimed, they said that their main competitor is people's sleep. So you're competing with people's sleep, so you have to keep them awake, and in order to keep them awake, just do the things, and think about the do nothing. By doing nothing, you keep watching, and by keeping watching, you are doing what they want you to do. And now you're going like, I'm seeing some heads going like, now I see that I'm being manipulated and that I'm human, and yeah, I love when I see that happening. And I call that the seamless experience, right? Seamless experience is something you want to do if you want to influence someone to do something, right? So if you want people to watch more, make it seamless. Make it like in order to watch more, they can do it by doing nothing. And then remove all the friction that you can see in the systems, because it is the friction that makes people stop. So think about if you had to change the episode and choose again on when it goes to episode 2, then you would probably watch less because you're introducing friction. So my view is that technology should be removing friction so that people can do what they really need and they want to do. And the simplest way to show that is the Amazon Go store, where you just go in and you get your stuff, you walk in and you just go. And you don't have any friction on the way out. And that's amazing. You just walk out and that's it. And if you still didn't understand what I mean by friction, I guess you will on this video. This is live, like what friction is live. I might actually run out of time because this takes a while. He tries and tries. Have you ever built a system like that, like forms that you have to fill and next, mandatory fields that you have to fill, and oh no, you can't proceed with that. And then you go next, I thought it was the end. Oh no. And then you download some code from GitHub, you go and read the README file, and it takes you to another README file, and you go like, what do I do to make this thing run? I have no idea. Please, and then you ask for help for someone else. And yeah. All right. So let's remove friction from the world. Let's make things easier to do. And then Amazon goes and patents something called anticipatory shipping, where they can start sending you stuff before you buy it. So if we want people to buy things, what if we just send it to them before they buy it? I'm just removing friction. Just the friction of, if you might as well, like you want it, I knew you wanted because I saw it on your behavior online, I have your data, so I'm gonna ship it to you before you buy it. So that's true actually, it's not a joke, it's real. They've patented something to send you something before. But of course, it's gonna come with something written saying, if you don't want this, just return. It's gonna be very tiny, like going, and then you wanted it because they're not gonna send you something you don't want. They will send you something that they know you were looking for. You just hadn't made the call and the step to click buy, which is a one-click thing, so you're still thinking, maybe I shouldn't buy that now. And then they will send it to you. And then, does anyone know that movie where the boy sees dead people? I started seeing biases everywhere. So I was like, I see a bias, and I see a nudge, and I see a manipulation. And that was when I didn't even have a beard. So I had to take another photo with the beard so you knew that was me. And I kept seeing biases. And I saw biases, and I saw biases everywhere. So you look at this iPhone here, and it's 3 options. This one is the most expensive one for $699. and then you go like, it's the most expensive one, and it's not, like there's 2 more, and then you go, okay, I'm buying the one in the middle because the $6.99 is the best one, and then you see a decoy there, and you go like, wow, I'm seeing that there is something here called framing. So here, 2 nudges apply here. One, it's called framing, which is the way you frame your decisions. The way you frame the information will determine how people make the decisions. And there is another bias as well, which is called middle option bias. The middle option bias is that people tend to choose the option in the middle. Regardless of what's around it, they go for the one in the middle. Right? So if you want someone to choose something, put it in the middle and make it look good, and then people will buy that one. And not just for buying, right? For influencing anyone. Sometimes you're making a presentation to someone in your company because you want to say that you should have continuous delivery because continuous delivery works, and then you want for them to say yes, then you frame the situation in a way to convince people that it should be working. You put something very bad on each side and you show in the middle why it should work. So it works for everything. It doesn't only work for selling things, right? Because sometimes you're selling an idea. Sometimes you're selling, putting in practice, correcting technical debt or whatever you want to do. It is about influencing. The IKEA effect is another curious one as well. When you build something, you're more likely to feel like you own it and that it's yours, and you feel attached to it. So when I was a developer, I've been a developer for 12 years and done a lot of pair programming, and then we would switch the pair programming because I was doing extreme programming, and there was this thing called promiscuous extreme programming, which I was like, what is that? But it was changing pairs 3 times a day. Then you would pair with one person, another one, for 3 days. And what would happen is I would arrive, and then that person had written a code, and they were very attached to it because of the IKEA effect. And then the first thing that I arrived was I tried to change it because I thought I need to be helpful because I'm arriving and I need to say something because I need to be useful. And that was the worst thing that I was doing because they loved what they had just written. It was like my precious ring, my precious code. And then they felt attached. So I've learned that I shouldn't be coming and trying to change something straight away. Maybe I should allow for us to bond first as a pair and then try to change something. And that was me applying the IKEA factor to pair programming. But you can apply it to anything. Basically, it's published by Derren is one of the publishers as well. And it's the effect that happens when you build something. You feel more attached to it. So we spoke about the status quo bias, which is the do-nothing situation. You just go with the flow, status quo. And then we spoke about a few other biases as well. And I won't even get to the beginning of it because there's more than 180 biases mapped. So what I did when I first saw it was I started to study all the biases and trying to find situations when I was seeing them. So don't expect to leave the room now knowing all the biases, but if you leave the room knowing that they exist and that there are over 180 and that people use those biases to influence you, then you will leave better because you will live with an expanded conscious mind in terms of the fact that we are being influenced. And I usually say that the UX design is very powerful. Not just the UX role, because UX is about the experience. It's the user experience. To me, it's not a role. Everyone does a little bit of UX design. It's not just the role of the UX person, because you also have DevX, developer experience. Anytime you are designing something that other people will use, you are being a designer, and you can have that power of influencing people's decisions. So you can always be a digital decision architect. In the behavioral economics world, there is this concept of a decision architect, and then you can be a digital decision architect by designing those decisions. I like that quote that says that a designer who doesn't understand human psychology is going to be no more successful than an architect who doesn't understand physics, because we are designing things for humans. Unless you're not. If you're not designing for humans, then you can learn something else, and that's not going to be applied. So, for example, Lemonade, it's an insurance company that was founded with a $13 million initial investment to reinvent insurance, right? And they came up with the fastest claim ever, 3 seconds for a claim. And then they had a behavioral lab inside their company because they wanted to understand human behavior. And remember Dan Ariely, the guy who wrote one of the 3 top books on behavior economics? He was hired by them and his role was a CBO, a Chief Behavioral Officer, right? So behavior is something so important that there is a Chief Behavioral Officer. Money is important, so there is a Chief Financial Officer. Technology is important, so there is a CTO or a CIO or a CDO now, Chief Digital Officer. And then behavioral is important, so there is we treat behavioral as a first-class area here because we want you to learn more about that. So I met Dan. It's quite interesting because during the World Cup in Brazil, a friend of mine walks into a shop, and then Dan Ariely was sitting there. No one knew him because it's not very well known, but my friend knew because we were like behavioral economics friends. And then he was like, "Oh, you have no idea who I met here. Dan Ariely is here." So I emailed him, and then since then he's been very responsive in terms of giving advice. And one of the things a few years ago that I tried was I was going to write a book on how behavioral economics and cognitive psychology explains agile. In fact, I gave a talk about that 10 years ago in 2012. And I was talking to Dan about that, and he nudged me into another direction because he said maybe looking at the agile was too niche. And then he said, do something bigger in terms of the digital world. And then he said that by sending an audio to me because he was burnt when he was younger, and then more than half his body was burnt. He's got a very good life story, and then he started running experiments on himself. So he can't write because of the movement on his hands. So he usually sends an audio, even on email, like before we had this audio chat tool. So this 1 minute audio that he sent to me was something that changed the direction where I was going.
Hi, Fabio. So I think that the digital world has a few interesting changes. I'm sure that people think differently when they see a digital interface. And here you can even say that different digital interfaces are different. You could think about different chapters that each focuses on what is different from in this technology approach for good and for bad, and think about what you would do differently because of that. So let me know what you think. Bye.
Cool. So if you're mentoring someone, you don't need to spend a lot of time mentoring them. To be a mentor, sometimes one advice, like one thing you tell them to go in this direction or in that direction, it's very valuable. So that 1 minute audio was very valuable because I ended up actually going in that direction, inspired on the book Nudge as well, which is about nudging people in the physical world. Then I created the concept of the digital nudge, which is all these small and powerful interventions in the environments where we make decisions. And that environment was anything digital, because that is the definition of a physical nudge, right? So that is how the concept of digital nudge came up, and then I wrote the book, and then I started having that hand nudge things all the time, everywhere. I even tattooed it here. It's even tattooed on my arm. So I love it so much. Endowment effect, IKEA effect, so passionate about the concept that I did that. And then you can look at yourself in two roles here. One role is you are a digital decision architect. You are designing environments where people will make those decisions, and then you can nudge them in the right direction. Or you are a digital citizen, and by knowing that you are being nudged, then you can be conscious of it and take control over your decisions. And then, okay, so what do we do now? What's the now what situation? If you are a digital decision architect, nudge for good, right? So nudge for good. Do not create nudges that will influence people to go in the direction that they don't want. And if you are a digital citizen, then raise your level of consciousness. Because a lot of people ask me, Fabio, if I know about these things, if I memorize all those 180 biases, can I manipulate people? And I say yes. Not only can you, but we have been manipulated all this time. And I like the fact that we have two types of influences that's defined by Nir Eyal in his book, Hooked. One is persuasion, which is influencing people to do what they want and what they need. And the other one is coercion, which is influencing people to do what they don't want and they don't need. So what's the first step to understand what is it that people want and need before building something? Before giving them something, let's try to understand. Otherwise, you will end up on one of these, what Harry Brignall calls the dark patterns, which is a website that tries to map all the bad things that people are doing. And one of them is called sneak into basket, which is if you are buying something and then someone sneaks it up on your basket at the end of your shopping cart, you're buying, let's say, a tablet, and then at the end there is a tablet case. Why is it that we let people do that in the digital world, but in the physical world we wouldn't let people do that, right? So why is it? Because we do behave differently in the digital world. And can you imagine all the morals and the ethics behind the decisions that technology will have to do for us? So that autonomous car, what if it's driving and then suddenly it has to make a decision, because the decision is, if it keeps going, it's gonna kill 3 people, and if it turns around, it's gonna kill the 3 people inside the car. So the car has to make a decision, who is it going to kill? And there is no rule right now that is the moralmachine.mit.edu, because they're trying to understand what is our morals and our ethics around that. Because the worlds are being merged. Like we have artificial intelligence, VR, autonomous vehicles, everything is being merged into this one thing that is the digital world. And there is no code of how that should happen. I actually saw that video. It was released a couple of days ago. Who has seen this one? It's called the Light Year Zero. It's in Netherlands, and it's a car. It is a car that has solar power, and it can go for 7 months without you charging it. So it's a merge of everything. So can you imagine a car with solar power, autonomous, reads your mind, makes the decisions for you? Like, that's all being combined. In the South by Southwest conference this year, there were a lot of talks about ethics. So the ethics behind smarter AI, right? This other one was the future of influence doesn't involve humans. And then this other one was ethical digital design as a competitive advantage. And this other one was the ethics of deepfakes. Are they always bad? So this concept of morals and ethics and what should be going behind the decisions we're making is more and more part of our day-to-day. We have been living more and more as a Black Mirror episode. Sometimes I go like, this is reality. This should be a reality show because it's what we have been living on. And then, in fact, a few years ago when I was working for ThoughtWorks, this was one of the products that was presented at an event in Singapore, which was called Smart Mirror. And it's very much Black Mirror. That was way before the Black Mirror episodes came up. Alexa, start the bank.
How can I help you today?
Alexa, show me my balance.
You have $3,390 in your current account.
So you see, the worlds are really merging into this big ball of digital crazy stuff going on. And if we don't raise our consciousness, we're going to be manipulated. There is a concept called Dataism that has been mentioned a while ago, but the way that Yuval Noah Harari talks about it is my favorite one. So I'll summarize for you because we're running a bit out of time. But he says that back in the days when we needed to make a decision, we would go for the theism. You would go to like a religious leader, or you would read a religious book and you would ask what to do. And then we moved into humanism, which is look within yourself, see how you feel. And then we're going to dataism, which is we are asking the companies and the organizations that have our data on what we should be doing. And that is the world that we've been living now. We are already in the dataism world. And I think we can have a good dataism world where we can use data, like, for example, the data that helps people with diabetes make decisions, like the continuous glucose monitor, which is something that tracks your data and then helps you make decisions. That is pretty much biotech and infotech merging themselves into something that is good. And yesterday I went to visit this company. It's here in Amsterdam, and they're called Now Watch. It's a watch that has a sensor that measures your stress, so it can tell you how stressed you are, because there is a correlated information based on your sweat that tells you your cortisol level. So there is something from sweat to cortisol that measures stress. And I thought this was amazing.
Can I ask you something? How do you feel right now? Are you happy? Healthy? Are you distracted by daily life? Are you stressed? Or are you worried about everything the future might bring? Are you lost? Or are you in the only moment that really exists? Now. Now Watch builds a bridge between the world outside and inside. It makes you aware of your sleep, your stress, health. It restores your balance and tells you everything about your inner world. Now Watch doesn't tell you time. It gives you time and helps you get more from each moment in life.
So I truly believe that there is a way that technology, as you saw in my dream, there is a way that we as technologists can use technology to help and not to hijack people's attention and to hijack people's times, which are two of the most scarce resources that we have, attention and time. So there is a way, and this last video I want to show is actually from the Humane Tech organization. They used to be called Time Well Spent. It's founded by Tristan Harris. And if you've seen the documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma, it is about that. So.
Architects of our digital world, stop. Be better. Because we can be. And we can see that these systems have been designed with intricacy so that companies can keep our attention indefinitely. I don't want to keep crushing these freaking candies. I don't want these alerts to completely command me. I don't care if that panda bear is dancing. Well, maybe. With a hula hoop. Okay, this is fantastic. I have to share this with my 10 friends and 10,000 strangers. Caption, who wants to throw a panda rager? Great, let me go back about my life. For God's sakes, I'm trying to right swipe my wife. Huh. 30 seconds and just 2 Facebook likes. Or is that just 2 for which I've been notified? Let me go back and check inside and see whose likes I tried to hide. They don't show them all, I wonder why. This panda's dancing. And another video plays after automatically. This one of a gopher that stage turns dramatically. It's like my attention is kept systematically raptured by algorithms that know exactly what I want. Or not what I want, just what I'll watch. And the people behind this intelligent design genuinely want to better our lives. But their bonuses just so happen to be tied to keeping time on site exceptionally high. And now even my news apps have been gamified, and what am I, not gonna click that one simple sex tip guaranteed to blow her mind? Wait, where was I, and why have I forgotten to look for that thing I'm supposed to find? And my God, look at the time. It is shocking. But somehow, yes, Netflix, I am still watching. And I know. I should have more self-control. But just to be clear, you just spent $1 million telling me this story designed to cut off at the end, leaving me wanting more. See, of course I want to see what you have in store. See my cursor already waiting there on the screen floor as you tease the next hour in all of its glory. And you'll give it to me, unless I actively abort. See, it seems the decision's already made for me. The countdown clock's moving. There it goes. 5, 4, 3. I need to sleep. But you made me want this more. This is not what I consciously signed up for when I hit play on one episode 6 hours ago. Architects of our digital world. You have more data, information, and control over our attention, the tools to tweak our emotions so we'll return to your experience. But is that what you should do? Or should you build digital tools so advanced they can actually enhance the world outside the device in our hands? Can you add so much value that it lets us put our phones back in our pants as fast as we possibly can? Not time-sucking, time-giving innovation That's what it means to be truly technologically advanced. The future is not all screens. It's humanity enhanced.
All right, let's be better. Let's build better, not just technology, but let's build better experiences.